Is Led Zeppelin shallow? Let's talk about it. So I have a friend who is not a huge Led Zeppelin fan, but he's very knowledgeable about music. We have a lot of great conversations together, and occasionally the topic of Zeppelin comes up, and he makes his negative opinion known. Most recently, his comment is that Led Zeppelin is a shallow band, that all of their songs are about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And if they're not about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, they're about some bizarre mystical topic that nobody cares about or can figure out, or they're based on some fantasy book like Lord of the Rings, but basically there's just no real substance to Led Zeppelin. So is he right? I have three real quick points in response to what my friend said. First is, in terms of the lyrical content, if you look back even from the very first album, they acquired an ironic, an old blues perspective from the very beginning that gives their lyrics an interesting slant. They are wise beyond their years. At the beginning, when Jimmy Page was more involved in writing the lyrics, and they have an irony to them, and it's anything but sex, drugs, and rock and roll. In fact, if you look at the first album, other than the cover of You Shook Me, you really can't find a sex, drugs, and rock and roll song. And this holds true right on through all of their albums, their entire discography. When Plant began to take over the lyrics, they did use some mythic subjects, and they did address religious issues, and they did delve deeply into philosophy and art and nature, but they used the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the kind of black dog and custard pie thing, as a counterbalance. So in effect, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the shallow aspect that my friend was talking about, is part of the light and shade reflected in their topics. They used the same approach toward their themes as they did everything else, and they had some that were kind of shallow and some that were extremely deep, and some are as deep as you want them to be, and I'll leave that up to you to pursue. The second point that I would make is musically. Again, just like the lyrics have this great range and balance of light and shade, the music is anything but shallow. They have influences from all over the world of every kind of music throughout history. In concrete music, they have orchestrations, they have rip snorting guitar solos, they have every manner of musical energy that they could get their hands on, and they were constantly striving for more. And if you doubt that, you should play Led Zeppelin 1 or just a couple of songs off of it, and then play something off of In Through the Outdoor. And if you can't hear the difference in their musical maturity and in their musical influences and also in this general musicianship, then there's something wrong with your ears. The third point that I would make is that image. When it comes to image, my friend had suggested, well, they're really shallow with the way that they look and the way that they present themselves on stage. It's all about lights and smoke and mirrors. But the thing is, that was just a brief point in time for Zeppelin. If you go back and look at the early live shows and the early photographs and stills and promotional stuff, they didn't have that kind of hyped up image. And if you look at them at any time after The Song Remains the Same era, they started dressing in, kind of regular clothes. Never a band to really pursue image and hype, which is clear from the fact that they put out Led Zeppelin 4 without any title or band name on the packaging, and they put out In Through the Outdoor in a brown paper bag, just to make the point that they weren't driven by image. So I don't think that Led Zeppelin was shallow, but I do think that someone who doesn't pay a lot of attention to them, who doesn't like them, who just sort of sees them on the periphery, might think that they are, because they do have a lot of high profile songs that are kind of based around almost a Spinal Tap level of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But what I'd be most interested to know is what you guys think. So if you have an idea about this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.